we got like $5 to like do something at the end. What is it going to be? And, and they can never come up with anything. You can't get a corner. You can go in the corner because that's all you can do.
Yeah. Think about meditating. Well, Greg kept coming in like, you got 3 days to the ending. You got 2 days to the ending. And the countdown. It was like 4 days out where he was like, we can't have any art direction now for the ending. You burned the time. So not only do we have to come with an ending, but an ending with no art direction, like no major props or nothing.
Do you want to give some introductions?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Rob. Introductions.
I'm Robin Cowie, producer.
Gregg Hale, one of the other producers.
Mike Monello, one of the others.
Dave Myrick, co-writer, co-director.
Ben Rock, production designer.
And I'm Ed Sanchez, one of the co-writers, co-directors.
And this is Stuart Rosenthal right here. He's going to come up and do it.
Come on, Stuart.
Come on. You didn't think you'd get away with it.
All right. Just because I love you guys.
Do that breakdancing thing you do.
Best attorney in the world, right here.
Yes.
Or a few of them, anyway.
So before I open up to the audience questions, I mean, I feel like you guys probably haven't seen each other in a while and just got to reminisce, I believe, during the screening. I just want to hear some stories. Like, what about even just, or any other stories about bringing the film here to Sundance, maybe even the premiere screening that just kind of stand out to you guys?
I remember, because I'd been to Sundance before. I don't think any of you guys had come out before. I was the only side come out previous years. I worked at another film festival. And I remember being out front, the Egyptian, and watching some of the film acquisition execs kind of coming in. And one, I'm trying to remember who it was, and one of them looking around and going, where the hell all these kids come from? Because there were a bunch of high school and college kids trying to get in. And it was kind of just such an unusual sight for Sundance to have that kind of audience having come up for the premiere. Stuart hosted us at right across the road for dinner, and our agents and everything. And we sat there and came out out of that dinner to come to the screening, and there was that line down the alleyway that was just like went forever, and we were just freaked out. We're like, whoa, what the? And then tonight when you all were there, repeating history, standing in that alleyway, it was like this amazing flashback moment 20 years later. So thank you for doing that.
I'm going to open up to you guys. Yeah, we have some questions right here. Yep.
I have a couple questions. So, like, how many people were on location? Was it just the directors and the actors? And what do you guys think of, like, the found footage movies are like now, like Paramount Action and all that?
So the first question was how many people were actually on set?
There were like, most of the time like 7 of us. And then we would add some people, sometimes there might be 10 or 12, right?
Yeah, like art department, we had art department.
Well, yeah,
But
like
we were actually shooting.
in terms of like on set when they were shooting, it was just the actors, and then when they were getting fucked with, it was us fucking with them. So if it took 20 of us to fuck with them, then 20 of us were out there fucking with them.
Sometimes I think a lot of people have fucked with them.
Yeah. we had the fuck crew, and then we had the normal.
And then does anyone want to share their thoughts on found footage now?
I mean, personally, I think it's great. I mean, you know, I'm a big fan of, you know, anything that helps tell a story, and if it's well executed, and to me, it doesn't matter how it's shot, as long as it's well executed, it's a good script and good acting, well, the same rules apply. I think it's certainly a way to shoot something that's less expensive, typically, on production, but you have to sort of keep in mind that you usually have a longer edit phase because you have a lot more options with each scene on how it gets cut together, more like a documentary, so you have to kind of factor that in. But when it's done right, it's awesome, it's great.
I kind of have a thought that I think is important, is that Ed and Dan created a situation that was sort of like these actors were in a LARP, and they were filming themselves in the LARP, and then we were doing whatever we were doing, and they didn't know what was happening. So when I talk to people about it, a lot of times I'm like, it actually is a documentary. And like all documentaries, it's omitting one convenient thing, and in this case, it was that they knew it was us messing with them all along. And they're actors, and they're putting performance into it, and they're doing all their real work, but like, I think the authenticity from it comes from the fact that it does feel like a real documentary because they made it like you would make a real documentary.
Yeah, it was, the way we did it was partly based on, I went through survival school in the Army, and by the end of survival school in the Army, you're kind of freaked out. So I'm like, let's just do that to the actors. So
What could go wrong?
So by the end, like, we weren't really letting them sleep that much, and we kind of fed them less and less. So we were just kind of fucked with their heads. By the end, they were a little broken.
I told that story to somebody the other day because they were asking how I made it, and they're like, well, weren't you concerned that you would hurt somebody? And I was like,
Yes.
What was the line you told them, Greg? It was like, your comfort, what was it? You said
We're concerned for your safety, but we're not concerned for your comfort.
So yeah, that was sort of the...
Which actors love to hear.
Yeah. But during the casting process, we sort of like, don't even apply.
Yeah.
Don't even come for an audition unless you're willing to, stick it out in the woods for 8 or 9 days, right? But then we still have people come in like fully dressed in like nightgowns and stuff. Like, did you not read the casting notice? So, but yeah, I guess that's what they call now the method approach.
We go to you over there.
So of course I've heard of the film before, but this is actually my first time seeing it. So
Yeah.
I'm just curious
Cool.
to see what the inspiration behind it was.
Inspiration behind the film.
Dana, we a lot of us went to film school together. Actually, all of us except Stuart.
Yeah.
Stuart was there.
They didn't let me in.
Stuart was working a real job.
And Dan and I were hanging out, and this is like 91 or so, and we had just seen like one of the Freddy movies, one of the late Freddy movies, and we were like, it wasn't really scary to us, and we were like, we started talking about these movies that made us scared when we were kids and we were younger, and we kind of went. Really, the focal point was this show called In Search Of, that Leonard Nimoy narrated, and then all those movies like Legend of Boggy Creek and Chariot of the Gods, the shows that kind of made it, were like basically fake documentaries. But to us, even though we kind of knew they were fake, they still scared the crap out of us. So we were like, could we do that again to a modern audience? And so we came up with this idea of like this film crew being lost, and then their footage being found. The first idea was many years later. And then we kind of just put it aside. We had other things. We were graduating and working on other projects. And then in 96, 97, that's when Greg got involved, put a little bit of his own money into it. And that's when things started really happening. And then we shot it in 97 and then edited in 98 and then premiered here in 99. So that was the main inspiration, was that show In Search Of.
Discussion over here. Oh. We have two of you right next to each other. So further back first, and then we'll come to you. Yeah.
Okay, how did you guys decide on the dynamic for the characters with the one female and the two males?
Question about deciding the dynamic, the one female and two male characters.
Well, originally it was 3 males. We had written the script to have 3 male filmmakers, and it wasn't until fairly well into the audition process that. And we had so many people coming through auditions. We auditioned in Orlando, and we did one in LA, and we had a bunch in New York, or like over the course of a whole year. And it got so much where Ed would take a room, and I would take a room, and Steph, his wife, was there helping out. I mean, we had everybody on board helping out with the auditions. And so one of the things we did on the audition process was have people ad-lib in the audition, so to kind of get an idea of what kind of improvisational chops were. And Heather came into my room, and she just I was really impressed by her. And one of the things Ed and I always sort of grappled with that lead character is, who would follow them all the way to the end of the movie? I mean, it would have to be kind of insistent and convincing to get these other 2 characters to kind of drive with them through this movie. to the end, like obviously, you know, they're going to die. So we needed someone with a really strong personality. And Heather just sort of impressed us. So she came back in for a callback, and she sort of changed her mind, and it really awakened us to the thought of having a female lead in here. And then it was just a process of sort of pairing her up with a good dynamic. Joshua was kind of involved early on and wanted to be, and he also had filmmaking experience, which was helpful. And then Mike Williams came on, and we had, you know, we workshopped maybe 15 or so people towards the end, and we just sort of saw the chemistry, and Heather just stood out. She just had the right balance of drive and ambition and naivete that worked to make it believable that these guys would follow her all the way, you know, or at least most of the way to the end.
This is sort of playing off what you said about the way that you talk with the actors, but were you guys scared, like filming in the woods at night? Or did anybody get freaked out?
A little bit.
The question is, is any scares shooting in the woods?
I mean, so to me, one of the scariest nights was the first time we messed with them in their tent, and their tent was in this like very, very dense pine forest, and even if the moon was out, it was like black as ink. You could not see your hand in front of your face. So following Greg's directions, we would all wear camouflage, and we had like little headlamps, and we'd walk out into the woods, and we'd put red gel on our headlamps, and then when we got closer, we'd turn them off. And that particular night, I think I was in front, and we knew where the tent was because we told them where to put it, but I didn't realize where it was till it was like right here. Like I could touch it, and it was like, oh shit, they're gonna hear us. And then, it's hard to explain what happened that first night.
They were really aggressive.
Yeah, they went pretty hot.
Yeah, like our directions were kind of like, I think just stay around the, you know, just point the camera out, but you know, it's us, so don't chase us.
Yeah.
You're gonna see it.
Yeah, we didn't want to be seen in the
But
shot.
for some reason, Heather was like, "Let's go!" and she chased me down this hill, and I was like, "Oh, I'm like an idiot. This is footage."
It was like the Bigfoot.
Yeah.
We spotted him.
Yeah. But the scariest part for me was like at the house. Like the house where the movie ends was just like this haunted house. Like it was just like a house from my nightmares. And I remember one day, we weren't shooting it, but we were prepping, and the sun had gone down, and I was alone in the cellar, and I realized, holy shit, everybody's gone. And I mean, I hadn't felt that kind of terror probably since I was a little kid. And I just like flew out of the house and caught up to the people walking out, like, don't leave me alone, you know, because it was scary.
Remember that time that we were all in the woods, all grown men in the woods, and we were all sitting there, we saw that light through the bushes, and we convinced ourselves that it was approaching us.
Yeah.
And it was a porch light or something, but we were all so freaked out. She goes, that light, man, it's coming our way. What do? We run? And you know, we were totally psyched ourselves out over a porch light, you know, probably 100 yards away. But, so yeah, we were in the moment a few times.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's go you over on the side.
Did the cast and crew play any pranks on anyone during the film?
Wish I didn't
I think
pranks.
the whole movie was a prank on the actors. No, there wasn't really. I mean, it was kind of. There was really no downtime when we were shooting, so there was like no time to like. It was basically we were just. The production was just basically just doing everything we could to stay ahead of the actors. And actually, one day it was raining, and they moved quicker than we thought they were going to move, and. We moved slower. It was they got their tent. Their tent was soaked, and it was kind of a disastrous day. But there was just no time for any kind of messing around or anything because we were just like it was like a 24-hour day play, and we were just like barely staying in front of them. So there was very little. I don't remember any pranks.
After the acquisition here at Sundance, the artisan people who bought it, they pranked some of the junior acquisition executives with stick figures.
I'm not proud of what I'm about to admit, but it was my job to, most of it was shot in Seneca State Park, but the house was in Patapsco State Park. And we've been, as Greg said, we've been starving the actors. And my job was to drive Heather and Mike from Seneca to Patapsco, and the whole way I pointed out every restaurant that we'd been to.
Well, early on, I mean, it sort of grew organically. In the very, very early days, we kind of developed this sort of proof of concept. We kind of shot this 8-minute kind of, I guess we call it the investor reel. And it was sort of like a mock documentary that kind of went into the backstory of the Blair Witch and Haxton Films. So we acquired this footage and yada yada yada, and then so Greg and I, edited that, and then Mike knew John Pearson, or got contact that John Pearson was coming to town to shoot some shows for split screen that was on Bravo back in the time, and so Mike called up John Pearson. Go ahead.
I called Dan up,
Yeah.
and I said, hey Dan, John Pearson needs a Betacam shoot. You know how to shoot Betacam? And you're like, not really, but I'll figure it out. And so I said, okay, great. He's gonna call you for a job. And he called up Dan, and you called up Hector, who knew how to do it. And John was kind of like, oh, I'm getting 2 guys for the price of 1. And really, Dan was kind of hanging along in order to pitch and Blair Witch.
Yeah, I mean, we shot for 4 days on his thing, and we had this investor reel, and I gave it to John. And like a week later, he called back and said, "Is this real or not?" And said, "No, it's totally fake." And he laughed. So he aired that video on the last of his cliffhanger, last of his first season, so season 1, and his website, or forum actually, was a forum back in those days, blew up.
No, not off the first one.
Oh no, yeah, off the second one, yeah. So
the season footage from the film.
Yeah, so that sort of got the internet space rolling, and Ed was building websites for, was your brother-in-law, right? Or cousin.
Yeah.
So we incorporated his skill set in to kind of build this website, and then we put a bunch of material that we shot for the phase 2 on there.
Yeah,
and
what happened was John Bravo didn't have a lot of original programming, so they kept rerunning that episode of Split Screen that was the second episode that had footage from the film, and it had some very, very snippets of Heather's confession and some key moments that were really kind of jarring. And John was kind of building a community of filmmakers talking about filmmaking, and every time Bravo reran the episode, people would go into this community and want to talk about Blair Witch. And John called us up and said, "You guys, you need to open a website, and you need to have a forum." And we were trying to edit the film, and we're like, oh, really? Like, we really have to do that? He's like, yeah, you have to do it because I need a place to send all the people who want to talk about Blair Witch. Just do it. And so we put it up.
Yeah. And people were asking us questions about, so where'd this come from? And that was really when we were kind of had a two-way conversation with the audience,
But the reality is that whole thing was organic, and we were only able to do it because of the way the film was shot. Because of the improvisational nature, there was all this mythology that all you guys had put together for the actors, so that when they improv about Blair Witch, they knew the backstory, right? And that stuff, having access to that stuff and being able to put it online was all the difference in the world. I don't know that if we didn't have that stuff, if this had been scripted traditionally, that the website would have been what it was. And that all that extra material that eventually ended up becoming like the sci-fi special Christmas. All that stuff wouldn't have existed.
And the original design for the film was there was kind of the experiment that took place in the woods, and then there was all of these other things. There was going to be kind of a documentary on that footage. So we actually had a lot of content that we had. And then when Artisan acquired the film, they asked us to come to New York, and we wrote a list. Write a dream list of everything that you want to do to market the film, and they did a lot of what we did. We were very fortunate that we were really involved in every.
And they cut a great trail. John Hageman in there. They really embraced the whole approach that we're taking. They took our website, sort of just made it bigger and broader, but they made a kick-ass trailer. And we saw it like, this is ballsy, and it was really pretty cool. So they embraced the whole thing. And
it was one of the first trailers to have a URL.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Yeah.
Cool. Here on the island.
Were the people in the town actors, or were they real?
Question: if people in the town were actors or real locals?
There was we planned some people, and then we also told them to go interview other people, just random people, because we figured because we figured that people saying, "No, I never heard of it," was kind of part of the story. And then the part that really freaked us out when we watched it was the little girl, the woman with the little girl who kept covering the mom's mouth, and that was totally like.
She was making that mom.
She just made it up. She was just like, I don't know
why.
Why she started doing it, but she started making up this story, and the little girl was, just one of these things that you can't even direct. I mean, how could you direct that even, So, but
action.
Yeah,
we never found it.
Or CG thing, but it was, so yeah, a lot of them were plants, and then like the ones that really knew like the details, like the fishermen were plants, the guy at the store that's talking about rusted par. But then the lady with the baby is not a plant. There's a couple others that just got random. But yeah, most of them were just people that we knew, and we just kind of gave them a kind of a sheet of what they should say, and then they kind of went off and kind of improvised.
And the person that the fakiest fake part of the fake movie is we didn't come up with the whole thing of Mike standing in the corner. We didn't know what the hell that meant until later. We figured it out. Like basically, like as the producer, I was like, we got like $5 to do something at the end. What's it going to be? And Dan and I could never come up with anything.
We had
no in a corner. You
we had no
in the corner because that's all you could do.
Yeah.
Think about levitating.
Well, Greg kept coming in like, you got 3 days to the ending. You got 2 days to the ending. And the countdown. It was like 4 days out where he was like, we can't have any art direction now for the ending. You burned the time. So not only did we have to come with an ending, but an ending with no art direction, like no major props or nothing.
But so we reverse engineered why the hell is he standing in the corner, right? Because the serial killer guy made him stand in the corner while he killed the other kids. So we actually went and got somebody later and shot him in the town saying the thing about standing in the corner.
But that was after Sundance. Like that shot of the guy talking about the kids.
Oh, that was after Sundance?
Was after Sundance, yeah. So the Sundance guy.
Because we're shooting at different endings.
In fact, we were.
Was it in this cut?
Was it in this
Yeah.
cut?
This was a theatrical cut.
We were so broke, like coming to the film, we had no money, and then we sold the movie. But it takes a while to get these deals done, like the contracts done, and we were still really broke. And so they did a test of the film, and they were like, "We think we want to reshoot the ending of the film," and we're like, "No, we don't think that's a good idea." And they're like, "Well, we'll pay you." We're like, "Yeah, okay, we'll reshoot the end of the film."
Well, they paid us more than the whole budget of the movie.
Yeah, it was more than the entire budget of the film. And so we went and shot.
We went back and we rehired the people that had worked on the film and actually paid them.
Paid them
this time. And then we shot these endings that
were terrible.
And then we went back and shot these little interviews that we wanted to stick in to explain the rusted par thing at the end.
So when we turned it,
Keep the money.
yeah, but we got to keep the money, and when we turned it to end, he said, like, all right, fine, we're going back to the original ending.
Well, given the way you shot the film, do you have a lot of deleted footage that we've never seen, and 20 years later, might you ever release that?
The question was about deleted footage, if there ever was.
We have like 20 plus hours of footage, so we had like a 2.5 hour version. That was like the first version of not that we were going to release it, but we just wanted to see what the hell we had. So we screened it at this theater in Orlando called the Enzian that really helped us out. It was very indie friendly, and we had that 2.5 hour version, but we taped over it or something because we don't have that cut anymore. So we could put together like a 2 hour version of it, but
there were a lot of really great scenes in the movie.
You don't want a 2 hour version. You really don't. I mean,
a lot of shaky cam.
The thing about the cut, when we did the cut at Enzian Theater, the idea was, here's all the footage that rings true. Like basically these guys cut out any line of dialogue, anything that sounded fake or inauthentic, and then kind of strung it together. And the idea was, let's see which scenes are working really well and which ones aren't, so that we can trim it further, so that we can put in the more documentary style stuff in between. But we didn't explain that to people, we just kind of let it unspool, and so people started getting feedback as if that was the movie. And that feedback was, I think, better. I think people started hearing it, people were like, well, it's really long, but it's really scary, and it's really, and kind of started the process of, it's working.
There were some really great scenes from some of the actors that didn't quite make the cut. They had some really good moments, some good performances in there that we were, really impressed with. But it's just like Michael was saying, it just didn't quite fit that mandate of total realism for the documentary format. But there was some really good stuff in there.
A lot more arguing.
A lot more arguing. Yeah.
I mean, basically the editing was just basically cutting out the arguing.
And the shakiness, reducing shakiness. Yeah.
We have time for 2 more questions. Yes.
If you look back on your work 20 years later, is there one thing that would change if you could?
Looking back 20 years later, if there was one thing you could change.
No, not really.
Yeah. It worked out pretty good.
It was pretty good.
It was all right. That's good. It came out all right.
Yes.
So with the Burkittsville setting for your fake movie, is there a significance for the town? I mean, like, why not upstate New York, which is a pretty town? Or what was that about?
The Burkittsville was just, we knew we were going to shoot in Maryland because I lived in Maryland, so, I had, my future wife and I had a little townhouse, so we were going to kind of use it as a kind of production hub. And we wanted to, we liked the woods in Maryland, so we were scouting around there. And Dan and I were just driving around, we were looking for like, okay, where's this township? And we came over this hill and we saw Burkittsville, and it's just really picturesque, got a mountain behind it, and
this great cemetery.
It's really beautiful. Awesome. And we're like, oh, there it is, there's Blair. So we just kind of reverse engineered the history. And then, so it was just, and, if we knew the film was going to blow up the way it did, we would have used a fictional town, because the Burkittsville people were really pissed off at us for a while. I think they're still pissed off at us.
They're really still mad at us.
But, but it was just the nicest town, it was close by, and we knew we could, get away with shooting some stuff there, so that was just the main decision.
Well, I thank you all so much for coming out.
Thank you.